other than he's fucking these guys up. But this dungeon boss is spamming every single OP attack he has just to make sure that Jinwoo can't close the gap. A little bit further into the fight, after Jinwoo's army just dropped half this dude's army, Jinwoo downed a bottle of Henny and was like, I'ma show you the true power of a necromancer, and proceeded to turn bro's army of orcs into Jinwoo's own army of orcs, bruh. And then Jinwoo's just like, yeah, bro, what I just did to your entire army, I'ma fucking do to you next. Like, bro, what has Jinwoo been fed lately? Who's teaching him this disrespectful shit? Bro is the actual reincarnation of King Von. What the fuck? But then suddenly, bro just starts tweaking out and goes back to pulling out every fucking trick in his book to try and kill this man Jinwoo. Trying to blind this man, trying to put this man to sleep on some demonic Pokemon shit. Only for Jinwoo to be like, bro, like I said, your shit does not work on me, little bro. Don't even try that shit. While at the same time dusting off his shoulder and be like, hey, yo, get this nasty shit off my trip, bro. Like, bro, I don't even know what to say anymore at this point, bro. Jinwoo's actually just a fucking goat. He knows this motherfucker for real can't do shit to him. And for the rest of this fight, Jinwoo is just straight up flexing. So this motherfucker turns into a giant and Jinwoo's like, hey, bro, don't try to give me PTSD now. While this dungeon boss starts spamming this dragon fire move, but Jinwoo just emerges from the smoke and poked his eye out and was like, growing in size only made you an easier target, gang. And from here on out, it was raps. Bro used a chain that was damn near 10 times heavier in size and brought this motherfucker down. And everybody is just completely stunned at what the fuck just happened, because this is Jinwoo completely blowing his cover of how strong he really is. This man even got all the HUDs in a trance, bro. Everybody is just looking at this man being like, yeah, nah, he's the main character. And when the smoke clears, Jinwoo is just looking at him with his newly acquired soldiers and he's like, hey, yo, jump this man. And bro is fighting for his life before Jinwoo eventually has him pull the plug and end the fight. This was some disrespectful shit. And after that whole ordeal, the Hunters Association, everybody else walks up to him and bro, why the fuck is Jinwoo even surprised? You literally asked bro if you could take over and air the bitch out. You thought they would just walk away? Anyways, this man Jinwoo has so much aura. The association has dedicated themselves to protecting bro and his information. Like, if this doesn't scream I have immense aura and nobody can fuck with me, I don't know what does. And when they left, bro got the HUDs geeking and he ain't even say a word to her. We're gonna be
guessing our unknown subscriptions.
I feel like I only have like 3 subscriptions. Can I get a hint?
talking about Solo Leveling's most recent episode, which in all honesty solidified Jinwoo as the undisputed GOAT. So let's talk about it. So the episode starts off with Jinwoo battling this demon in a suit of armor, and this is nothing but light work for this man, quite literally grabbing them by the fucking throat. But before bro could finish the demon off, a female voice calls out from the suit of the armor and says, revealing this person as a demon baddie named Essel who pleads for her life. And Jinwoo, visibly tired of this fucking bullshit, is just like, whatever, I'ma let you go, and proceeds to turn his back on her. But then this trifling ass demon thought she could sneak this man Jinwoo, only to find out the hard way that sneaking does not work on the go, which she immediately regrets. So Jinwoo starts interrogating her, being like, yo, where can I get the access to the next level of the tower? And she reveals that her family is keeping the entry permit in their castle and even knows the locations to the next levels. And Jinwoo, despite her trying to sneak him like 30 seconds ago, decides to trust her and is guided back to her family castle. But the second that Essel walks in with Jinwoo, her father is like, oh hell no, Essel, who the fuck is this? As it is revealed that bro could see Jinwoo's entire army hiding inside his shadow. So bro orders everybody in the castle to prepare and jump this man, but he knows this man Jinwoo is the guy who had been wiping out the previous level bosses like it was nothing, and knew that he was no match for him. Like bro, trying to jump Jinwoo would be like running 900 miles per hour into a brick wall. It's not a good idea whatsoever. So he concedes and gives Jinwoo the entry permit for the next floor. But then Jinwoo's like, oh yeah, I'ma need to borrow your daughter too. And when Essel's father hears this shit, he was actually about to crash out, misinterpreting Jinu's demand as him trying to dig down his daughter. But then Jinu was just like, ayo, it's not like that, just as a guide for the next floors up. So Jinu starts climbing even more levels with Essel within the tower and leveling up his soldiers until he reaches the 100th floor, which he encounters the demon lord / king Baron and his big ass dragon ready to square up with him. Oh yeah, this guy also has an army of his own as well, and these motherfuckers get to boxing. And my god, this shit was for real, an all-out war with all of Jinu's generals fucking shit up. And this shorty Essel is discombobulated by this shit and is about to get caught in the crossfire of everything happening around her. But of course, like bread and butter, whenever a baddie is in trouble, Jinu is always there to pull up and save them. And this is when we finally get to see Jinu give this shit everything he got, using his stealth and dash skill to try to sneak Baron, but bro blocks this shit effortlessly and throws this man across the field like an angry child throwing his controller after dying in Fortnite, while hurling this death beam of doom at Jinu, which also acts as a honing missile. But then Jinu calls backup from Igris and Fang and is like, hey yo, jump this man! And bro, you already know the animation on another level when cubes are flying all over the screen during a fight scene, and they end up absolutely smoking this fucking dragon. And later on in the fight, we end up seeing some more peak animation with Jinu's army literally jumping this man Baron. And dog, this dude Baron gotta be a Pokemon or something, cause he be spamming this fucking hyper beam on God, and it's fucking working. And while Jinu's army tries to jump Baron, Jinu himself tries to sneak him, but this dude for real got that fast ass reaction time and yagas this man Jinu, but he gets bailed out just barely by his shadow army, which is when Jinu realizes he's out of mana and it's only him against Baron now. No Igris, Iron, Tank, or Fang to bail him out again. And before these motherfuckers get to scrapping again, it starts to rain. And bro, these motherfuckers are moving so fast, I deadass didn't even realize they moved until it cut to them boxing and going blow for blow. And yo, this animation is just so beautiful to look at, bro. I'm not even gonna lie, I can't even keep up with like half of the shit that's going on right now, man. All I caught from that is that they for real got Jinu moving like Sonic or some shit, pulling out these fucking spinning attacks. But Baron ends up using his fucking hyper beam attack again, and Jinu loses both his daggers and blocks Baron's strike. Like dog, they for real got this man Jinu thinking he Captain America or some shit with his pose. I'm dead as fuck. Now y'all might be wondering, how does bro make it out of this shit? He lost his army, his weapons, and bro looks like he about to get put on a missing child poster. What can he do now? Well, first off, Essel comes with the fucking alley-oop to Jinu, distracting Baron for a second so that Jinu could pull all this man's arms out. Holy fucking shit. He for real got this man looking like a Barbie doll 7 seconds inside of a daycare. God damn. And Jinu puts the nail in the coffin to end this fight with a quite literally explosive ass punch. Like bro for real created another panel for Blue Lock. And the episode ends with the rain clearing up and telling Essel that her family runs this shit now. Anyways, what's the conclusion for this video? Not only did he bag a literal demon, he pieced up the person regarded as the demon lord. If that ain't goat shit, I don't know what is, bruh. Jinwoo versus the Ant King has got to be one of the best fades ran I've ever seen. So let's talk about it. So after the S-rank hunters get their shit ran by the Ant King and are left to be jumped by a full army of ants, Jinwoo finally decides that right now is the perfect time to pull up. Now when all the S-ranks are getting belt to ass by the Ant King, right after two motherfuckers are basically on life support. And I know some of y'all might be wondering, why didn't bro just pull up earlier? He could have saved two hunters getting put out of commission. Well, I think the answer is pretty clear. Jinwoo's sole purpose in life is not to be the strongest. His sole purpose is to just aura farm at any chance he gets, even if it's at the inconvenience of other people. Like, there is no fucking reason he had to be posted up on this tower at the end of the previous episode, sitting like this. Bro is literally doing this shit for the love of the game. As long as Jinwoo moves like a prime SGA and looks clean anytime he does does anything, motherfucker don't care if a million baddies are in danger. And bro, peep this shit. Bro nonchalantly appears behind Tiger looking motherfucker with his hands in his pockets, not amused by anything at all. Bro is just a chill guy for real. So Jinwoo gets them all healed up using the potions that he has, but Cha couldn't get healed because her health status was way too fucking low for the medicines for it. Shorty was for real about to get cooked and bite the dust by a fucking ant. That's just sad. But before they could leave to get to safety, the Ant King pulls up after dealing with Goto's sorry ass and sees Jinwoo as his next target. So Jinwoo, like the aura farmer he is, just starts walking towards him and calmly stares this motherfucker down. Meanwhile, everybody looking at Jinwoo crazy like he just started backflipping and flying away from them. Cause they all looking at this motherfucker Jinwoo like, oh nah, he about to get cooked. However, what I am about to present to you is one of the best fades ran in anime history. So bro starts asking Jinwoo if he's the king of humans, in which Jinwoo responds by talking that shit, being like, damn, I didn't even know your stupid ass could speak. So the Ant King just starts screeching like a motherfucker, and Jinwoo's just like, man, get your stink ass breath out of my face. Meanwhile, the broadcast is restarted, and everybody sees that Jinwoo is the only one standing against this Ant King and his army. And Chairman Go already know this motherfucker's the MVP. So he starts getting hyped, being like, yes sir, that's my boy, Jinwoo. Beat the brakes off this man right now. So the fight starts off with the Ant King absolutely decking Jinwoo right in the face, which catches everybody off guard and has the Ant King thinking that shit was just easy. But when the smoke clears, he realizes Jinwoo ate that sorry ass punch. So Jinwoo starts hacking and hit this man with a mean right, and they just keep going back and forth, trading hit after hit. Like bro, they were for real out here boxing. No weapons at all, just straight hands. Like bro, this shit is absolute cinema. Jinwoo proceeds to then hit him with a mean gut check, which sends bro flying. But then the Ant King's freaky ass tries to stun Jinwoo with some poison, which for the millionth time does not work on this man. So Jinwoo grabs this man's arm and counters the shit out of him. And at this point, the Ant King for real think that Jinwoo's just cheating or something. So bro's like, I bet I'ma transform. And as he's transforming, this motherfucker Jinwoo is not even the slightest bit phased. Bro's looking at this shit like, is this nigga serious? But I can't lie, this transformation was actually tough as hell. But this is where these motherfuckers actually get to scrapping. And dog, my eyes were simply blessed with this animation. However, we gotta talk about a certain frame within this fight, which honestly, Jinwoo lost some aura for this shit. I can't even lie. Shout out to the motherfuckers on TikTok, because I would have never caught this in a million years. So the fight's going on like normal, right? Bam! Right there. You missed it. I'ma run it back. Did you see it? Probably not. I'ma play it again, and this time I'ma slow it down and pause on the exact frame I'm talking about. Animators decide to flash us with some Sungjin cheeks for a single frame. Like bro, someone deadass drew this frame, and the studio working on this thought, yeah, let's put this shit in. Crack out and everything. Like dog, are you fucking serious, bro? Why do he got his cheeks out and shit? Oh my god. But continuing on with the fight, these motherfuckers were for real so fast they turned into streaks of color. Meanwhile, everybody who is spectating or looking at this fight are in complete astonishment. These motherfuckers can't even keep up with anything that's going on. And low-key, me neither, bruh. How are motherfuckers supposed to commentate this shit if they just turn into a red and blue line every 5 seconds? These motherfuckers were just going crazy. Jinwoo then starts to hit a fucking Brawlhalla combo on this man, throwing his daggers and hitting the fucking... Bro for real think he Deku him, bro, with this one for all bullshit. Bro was comboing him so hard, the effects of bro getting hit happened a solid second after Jinwoo threw all his punches. And understandably so, this move actually had the Ant King tweaking bad. So bro slammed Jinwoo to the floor and was literally a dick away from ending this man Jinwoo's career. But but then Jinwoo's OP ass got an upgrade mid-fight and filleted this motherfucker. Oh my god. And at this very moment, the Ant King realized he done fucked up. Bro was fearing for his life because of this man Jinwoo. So he just starts fucking booking it. But Jinwoo was not gonna let this shit slide. Bro turned into a fucking Beyblade and just severed this man's arms. And with Jinwoo's army absolutely dominating the fuck out of the Ant army, it was pretty much wraps. Bro even tried fleeing a second time, but Jinwoo was like, bring that ass back here right the fuck now. And this is when he just started going ham, slicing and dicing until this motherfucker was deceased, bruh. Had this motherfucker on all fours trying to crawl away and shit. Like, bro, this man is just on another level. Y'all see what I did there? Anyways, that's gonna be it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and a comment down below on what anime you'd like me to make a video on next. And I'll see y'all in the next one. We out this up.
It's no secret that Sung in the novel is a lot more aggressive. He takes things a bit more personally and really likes to flex when the opportunity comes up for him. This was no different during his fight with Tusk, and it creates for quite the entertaining bit of cut content. So, if you want to know the whole separate mission Sung was fighting for here, stick around as it's some of the most petty stuff we've seen from him yet. There was also plenty more to the fight surrounding it. Let's get started. Episode 18, Don't Look Down on My Guys, covering chapters 72 to 76 from the manhwa and chapters 89 to 92 from the web novel. It looks like Jinho's cousin won't be getting her debut since that extra scene I mentioned could come out this episode didn't actually happen this episode. So, to quickly give you a rundown of what that was, it was essentially Jinho venting that he hadn't seen Sung in a week. Soo-yeon is the person Jinho is closest to, so it's not rare for him to have personal conversations with her like this. He was pretty much crying over the fact Sung had been ignoring him. Sung was just climbing the tower dungeon, but that wasn't news Jinho was aware of. Now, this scene wasn't just Jinho expressing his grievances, but was also a means to introduce him. The famous actor now turned hunter Lee Min-sung. He was getting lots of coverage for his upcoming evaluation. Soo-yeon, being a celebrity hunter herself though, already knew this was nothing more than for show. As it turns out, Lee's evaluation was already completed. Why then the big press conference? Well, that's because that's who he was. He was a massive attention seeker who would do anything to put himself into the spotlight. A person whose ego Soo-yeon wasn't very fond of.
He's the one up and pacing now, back and forth behind the coffee table. It's as if he's having to work up the courage to find his own words.
That's pretty much it for that, so to move on now to what we saw in the anime, let's start with when Cha arrives here. There were a few more scenes of her acting all anxious while looking for Sung. At first, she didn't really want anyone knowing why she was here, so for a solid amount of time she kinda just hung out around the back. She would scout the miners and try to see if she could find Sung herself. It was when Sung didn't show up though that's when she decided she would wait for him. 1 minute would turn to 3, then 5 would turn to 15, eventually leading Cha to get dejected and leave. Such a feeling only lasted for a short couple of steps though, since before she could even leave the site, Cha would quickly turn around and wait some more. It was only after all that waiting that Cha would finally ask about Sung. This is where Cha would come to the conclusion Sung was far too suspicious, since even if she set aside the fact he magically found the boss room while getting lost, it's the fact he did get lost that doesn't make sense to her. I mean, Sung is a 4-year veteran after all. His actions here just didn't line up with someone who should have all that experience under his belt. That's why she felt the need to go in after him. She needed to know what it was Sung wanted with the Hunters Guild. To go in without a weapon was unimaginable though, and it was a lot more cute in the manhwa when Cha had to double back and take the pickaxe. This brings us now to inside the dungeon, where the full unrestrained aura of Tusk would be revealed to them. The manhwa exhibits this with panels of them dying, likely to highlight how easy it would be for Tusk to just kill them here. It still wasn't enough to break Ki-hoon's spirit though, as the moment he saw Tusk distracted by Sung, that's when Ki-hoon would pounce, thinking it was a good opportunity to strike. For a second, he actually believed it worked too, since his first few steps were met by zero reaction whatsoever. Like, with none of Tusk's guards even making a move to intercept him, Ki-hoon truly felt like he lucked out here. In actuality, Tusk was simply accepting Ki-hoon as the first volunteer, leading to the beatdown we saw in the anime. The part of it we didn't see though was the resilience of Ki-hoon to keep fighting through all of it. You see, even after getting tossed up and down 5 times over, Ki-hoon still hadn't let go of his sword yet. He kept holding on because he refused to give up. Despite being up against such overwhelming power, Ki-hoon still wanted to fight anyway. So it was after getting tossed 4 more times after that's when Sung would step in to save him. He would then ask the question he'd been patiently waiting for, all while mimicking Tusk's attack on Tusk's own guard. The thing about Sung's attack though is that the way he did it was far more aggressive than the way Tusk did it. He would bounce the guard up and down like he was a basketball, having him hit the floor and ceiling way harder and faster than how Ki-hoon got it. This made accepting Sung's request a whole lot easier because it was at this moment that Ki-hoon was angry. He was angry at himself for being toyed with and angry at the monsters for toying with him. So it didn't matter who it was that was asking him. If they could put a stop to what him and his strike squad was going through, Ki-hoon was happy to accept help from anyone. It was the exact vulnerable mindset that Sung was waiting for. Now, I don't know if it was the way Tusk treated Ki-hoon or it was his comments calling Sung's abilities tricks, but the moment Sung got permission to attack, he became so much colder in his approach to everything. Before, he never really cared about the monsters he killed, but this was the first time he wanted to slice one up badly. In fact, Sung was so enraged by what Tusk had done that he decided he was gonna save Tusk for last. Since he was clearly capable of understanding enjoyment, Sung wanted to see if he could make him feel fear as well. This was the new objective under which Sung was fighting for now. Before we get more into that though, Woo showing up here was out of direct orders from the chairman. Normally he would have tried to investigate Sung discreetly, but an A rank trying to remain undiscovered against an S rank was straight up impossible. That being the case, Woo deemed it best to just show up in the open. He would try to justify it the same way Cha did and make it seem like it wasn't weird for him to be checking up on him. Naturally, he didn't want to come off as strange either, so a lot of mental gymnastics were done to make it seem like it wasn't. It's a funny series of excuses that share the same anxiety as Cha. They're both really trying their best not to creep Sung out. Of course, the mere presence of the monitoring division was enough to make any hunter nervous, since if they were here then that usually meant a hunter was in trouble. With their job being to arrest Awakened that normal laws couldn't do anything about, the fact they were here now implied it could be to reform or eliminate someone. Such was the assumed work of the monitoring division. It was as soon as Woo got to the gate that he immediately knew the listed reading was wrong. He could feel Tusk's unrestrained power even outside the gate. This wasn't enough to warrant very much concern though, since with 2 S ranks already on the inside, Woo figured they should have it handled. That was until he felt another aura. As soon as both him and his less mana-perceptive associates felt powers so indescribably raw, that's when they knew the hunters inside might be in trouble. So, as hunters who were part of the monitoring division, it was now their job to go in and inform the current raid team exactly what they were dealing with. Typically they did only manage hunters and watch them, but another part of their responsibilities was to aid hunters in their times of need too. The younger association hunters were certainly scared to do so, but despite not having to, they decided to follow Woo anyway. Now, for Cha, who was already quite deep in the dungeon herself, she was quite perceptive when it came to figuring out what had happened here. At first, she thought she simply underestimated her strike team, up until she noticed something odd. Almost all the orcs were injured by short, sharp weapons. None were fatally injured by them, but they were hindered enough to limit their movements. They were clues that made it clear the strike team was celebrating victory over opponents someone else had prepped for them. She could also tell they were taken care of all by one single hunter. Aside from the 2 in this instance here, Cha could easily tell one person drove every orc to the brink of death. How then was such a feat possible? Well, that was the part she couldn't figure out yet. You see, even with all her speed and power, Cha knew that even she would struggle to fight 20 High Orcs solo. Combine this with the fact no one on Ki-hoon's team even used daggers, and that made the only reasonable explanation Sung. Though she couldn't be certain for sure, there were more than a couple clues indicating it probably was him. It was then that magic tremors could be sensed from deep inside the dungeon, exhibiting power unlike anything Cha had ever sensed before. If that was power that belonged to the boss, then Cha knew it was only a matter of time before Ki-hoon and his team were dead. The thing about these tremors, though, is that none of it was actually from Tusk. There was that one portion of aura when he took his mask off, but the energy Cha felt here and Wu felt here, all of it came from Sung. It was the moment he had unleashed his shadows, thus the reason it felt so incredibly different to them. The novel describes it as a wave of magic incomparably greater to that of Tusk's, so I believe that was the true terrifying power Wu and Cha felt earlier. For the mages present who were right next to it, such power was one they couldn't even consider to be magic. They weren't even sure that what they were feeling was magical energy anymore. All of it just felt so incredibly different to them. So, it was as all that magical energy filled the room that every hunter found it increasingly difficult to breathe. They could only imagine the terror they would feel if they had to face such an aura themselves. Luckily they didn't, but for the High Orc warriors who did, these monsters known for their bravery began to back up a bit. Though it was 50 against 150, they were retreating from the dangerous pressure being emitted by Sung and his soldiers. Now, when it came to the massacre itself, if you're wondering what exactly about Sung reminded the others of Cha, it was the way she jumped into battle and swiftly cut down monsters like she was performing some high-tempo dance routine. This had earned her the nickname Dancer, and now Sung was exhibiting movements that exceeded that. So if Cha was a dancer, then Sung was a typhoon. He was the center of a storm, obliterating absolutely everything in its path. Then, where Iron cut down orcs with pure destruction, Igris did so with the utmost elegance. They were still able to synergize well together, and there was even a scene where Tank and Iron would do a thumbs up to each other. Now, it was when Tusk would cast his hexes that's when he fully believed the fight was over. Reason being that hexes were fundamentally different from regular magic. They couldn't be evaded the same way a spell could. No, the moment they were cast, that was it. Normally one would require purification magic in order to dispel a hex, but what Sung had instead was power greater than the hex itself, the only other means of defending against it. That being the case, Tusk began to think there was another shaman greater than him dispelling his magic. Not once did he think that it was actually just Sung's natural immunity. It was a moment later that Sung would finally engage Tusk himself, but not enough to fully kill him yet. He actually could have killed Tusk the instant the fight began, but because he wanted to instill fear into his heart before that, Sung decided he would simply play with him. He wanted to make Tusk feel what Ki-hoon and the others felt first. This was a bit harder than Sung initially thought though, because even after killing his orcs and dispelling his hexes, Tusk's eyes still looked alive. It was clear Sung needed to step things up a bit. So, that's when he would extract the shadows of the High Orcs, revealing a fate far worse than death for them. Where normally these High Orc warriors would have no problem jumping in against an opponent who was stronger than them, now they were openly retreating. To see their dead comrades turned against them was far too much. It wasn't because the battle was 100 versus 100 now though, but rather the fact something precious was being denied from them. You see, to know that if they died they wouldn't ascend to warrior heaven, well, that was their worst possible nightmare. They were truly afraid of becoming someone else's puppets. This was true for every High Orc present, and it remained true for their leader as well. Where only moments ago he still had fight in his eyes, now there were clear signs of fear. It just wasn't for the same reason as everyone else. What I mean is that something about Sung made Tusk recall an existence that could revive the dead into shadows. It was an existence of which there should only be one of, not two. That being the case, Tusk knew this human had to be him. Who is him? Well, that's a question I can only assume relates to this scene in the anime. For Tusk, it was a revelation leading to thoughts far more existential. Like, if Sung truly was the person he thought he was, then why was it that him and the other orcs were here in this dungeon? Nothing made sense when it came to the concepts surrounding their existence. No, instead any thoughts of the subject were left completely empty. It was as if his brain had been wiped of all of it. This left only the emotion of fear, which was exactly what Sung had wanted. His plan turned out to be a complete success. It's before the fight would come to an end, though, that an interesting interaction would occur between Sung and Cha first. Where in the anime Sung doesn't notice Cha until after everything, the two would actually make eye contact right as she entered. At first, she was thrown aback by the incredible scene in front of her, but that came secondary to helping her strike team. As curious as she was to find out more about Sung Jinwoo, the safety of her comrades came first. It was a priority that involved jumping into the fight and killing orcs herself. It was right as she was about to do so, though, that's when she would make eye contact with Sung. A momentary exchange which would lead her to the realization interference wasn't necessary. In fact, Sung's gaze made it clear it was something she shouldn't do at all. She couldn't understand why that was, but something about his expression made it clear he was in complete and utter control.
I've been learning Spanish on Duolingo for free. Me encanta la playa.
Sure, his summons probably had him low on mana, and sure 100 high orcs and a boss were still left to be taken care of, but still Cha knew she needed to stick to the sidelines. Instead, the only thing she could wonder was how it was Sung was going to finish this. So, when Cha lowered her stance and resigned herself to the sidelines, that's when Sung could relax knowing things would continue the way he wanted. With all the work he had put in to get to this point, it would have been a real shame for Cha to step in and ruin all that. Like, the man had even waited for Ki-hoon to drop his sword here, also he could be absolutely certain Ki-hoon would answer the question the way he wanted him to. He had suppressed his urge to kill the shaman from the very beginning because the most important thing was getting permission. Sung wanted everything and he went to great lengths to secure it. So, to know Cha would let him continue with what he worked so hard to earn, well, that was incredibly relieving. He could focus solely on the fight knowing no one was going to interrupt him. It's a pretty big difference from how it goes down in the anime, since despite Sung knowing an S rank is watching him, he still proceeds to fight with his entire army anyway. He even makes a conscious effort to make a show out of it. This, I think, highlights best the core difference between the Sungs of each medium because you can see exactly where their mindsets are at. One's completely focused on business, while the other has room to flex and even play around a bit. Now, though in the anime it was the generals which finished the fight for him, in the novel all it took was a single punch. Tusk would ask if Sung still found things amusing, to which Sung would simply reply yes. It was a cold one-liner which showed Sung never took the fight seriously to begin with. In the end, Sung would gain 2 whole levels, acquire a brand new shadow ranking above Igris and Iron at the Elite Knight level, then also be able to store up to 127 shadows now. If you're wondering why Tusk was easier to acquire than Baraka, well, it's implied the success rate of extraction was dependent on the target's strength compared to Sung. So, since Baraka was a 3v1 Sung barely won, it makes sense then that his shadow would be harder to extract. Now, it was while Sung was being escorted back that he would actually ask why Wu was doing this. Wu would respond by asking if he was planning to join the Hunters Guild, a question to which he already knew the answer to, but needed to ask anyway since it was the best way to identify the mistake Sung just made. What I mean is that, by exhibiting above S-rank powers in front of employees of the largest and wealthiest guild in the entire country, Sung had just opened himself up to more of the annoyances he hated. His actions contradicted what he said he wanted earlier. This was a point Sung unfortunately couldn't help but agree with, since there was no telling what length the Hunters Guild would go to secure another S-rank hunter. Luckily, the association's interests lined up with Sung, so at the very least, the two could work together to avoid situations like this. It was before leaving that Ki-hoon would run up to thank Sung personally, because from his perspective, he had essentially saved them for nothing. Not only did he request 0 compensation for his heroic efforts, but he also risked revealing his identity, which the association clearly wanted to keep hidden. That being the case, it would have been wrong for Ki-hoon not to thank Sung properly. He also felt personally grateful after Sung had killed that one general using the same method he was tortured with. Sung would then get one last dig on the healer girl before leaving, confirming my assumption that he really just doesn't like her for some reason. Cha would be the only one not getting to say what she wanted, since where she just wanted to ask to talk later, she wasn't even able to get his number. She felt if she asked, then her intentions might be misunderstood a bit. So instead she decided to say nothing. Sung's conversation with Jinho is something they'll show more of next episode, so that leaves us with this last scene with Choi. His face was certainly something when he found out Sung was acting as their porter, then more was said about how Sung is a stronger hunter than him. The way Ki-hoon goes about contextualizing it is by explaining how in raids, roles were divided into attack, defense, and support. It's without all three working together that a team would usually find themselves in danger. It's for that reason that raid teams are usually built the way they are. The weakness of one teammate gets made up for by the strength of another. What then happens when all three roles can be covered by a hunter solo? Well, therein lies the fundamental difference between Sung and Choi. It didn't matter how powerful Choi's magic was, because when a horde of monsters attack him all at once, there would be nothing he could do to defend himself. Such was a scenario Sung could easily take care of, so that's the reason he can be considered stronger than Choi. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. If you liked what you saw, then leave a like, and if you want to see more, then consider subscribing. I'll also be talking about next episode's cut content early on stream on Sunday, so feel free to follow me there for more content. Until next time though, ciao!
I really wanted to reject you. I wanted to pretend I didn't understand what you said.
We are on a one-stop train to Jeju Island, and there is absolutely nothing stopping it. Along with it comes the biggest change solo leveling will make, since the plan Japan has with South Korea differs massively depending on whether you're reading the novel, manhwa, or anime. I'm talking about an insane shift in narrative that borders on geopolitical warfare. That, however, is only half of the episode, since the other half covers Sung's tower climb to the Demon King. It's a more extensive challenge that focuses on Sung's shadows, his ever-increasing power, and the system. Both are equally important, so I'm actually going to split them up into two videos. This will focus only on the tower dungeon, while the next will cover all the Jeju stuff. It's a video I promise you don't want to miss out on. Before we get started though, a lot of people have been asking when the new solo leveling drops were coming out, so I'm happy to announce right now. This is our newest collection, and it features the returning favorite Strongest Tee, a heavy cotton hoodie version since it's winter, and two brand new designs paying homage to Iron and Igris. Both are minimalist depictions of their iconic weapons, so those who are fans will recognize it right away, while those who aren't will see it as a subtle piece of cool looking streetwear. You can get all three at a discount using the link down in the description. The collection will only be available for 3 weeks though, so be sure to pre-order now before they're gone forever. We also ship everywhere internationally, but keep in mind since these are made by hand and shipped in-house, shipping to certain countries will cost a bit extra. I just wanted to make that clear so none of you were caught off guard by it. But anyway, episode 20, Looking Up Was Tiring Me Out, covering chapters 82 to 87 from the manhwa and chapters 101 to 107 from the web novel. To start from Sung's encounter with Essel, her initial squad was 3 demon knights and her a demon noble. Based on Sung's own assumption of how demon power scaling worked, the knights were about the same level of an A rank, while Essel and the other demon nobles were easily in the S ranks. He could tell by the way that she fought against him. Her technique of rapidly targeting all his vital points clearly indicated she was very well trained. In fact, if not for Sung being her opponent, Sung knew she could easily handle 3 to 4 A ranks at once. It was just unlucky that she had to be facing him. It was when she surrendered shortly after this that Sung would feel extremely put off by such absurd behavior. It's not like intelligent monsters were rare, but to see her prostrate herself was a level above rare. There was something about Essel that just seemed strange to him. Aside from the bears expressing their disdain towards her though, Sung figured this would be a good opportunity to initiate conversation. It was before those questions we saw in the anime though that Essel would first give her a reason for fighting against him. You see, as a guardian of this floor and all its inhabitants, she couldn't let some random person keep hunting her fellow demons indiscriminately. If you looked at it from the perspective of her, Sung was literally barging into her home and massacring all her people. He had essentially flipped roles with the monsters from his own world. So, since he was the equivalent of a magic beast to them, Sung bore no grudge against Essel for fighting against him. He fully understood where it was she was coming from. He just didn't care. Even now, Essel was nothing more than a source of information, so as soon as her value dropped below what Sung was expecting, Sung fully planned on killing her. He was extremely curious to see how much XP he would get. This differs from how it was in the manhwa, since Essel's likeness to a human made him uncomfortable with killing her. In the novel, Sung was all business though, so Essel's survival depended solely on whether she could provide something more valuable than XP and whatever loot she would drop. It was value which Sung believed could only be provided via the entry permit. So, Sung would be the one to ask if she had it, leading to a blank stare that made it seem like she didn't. Sung would then waste no time summoning his daggers, since to him negotiations were now over. He would briefly ponder the peculiarity of an intelligent monster using their intelligence to beg for their life, then immediately switch thoughts to the unknown amount of XP he was about to get. I mean, she was the first demon noble he'd come across after all. So, as far as Sung knew, killing Essel might even be what grants him the entry permit. It was right as he was about to attack though that's when Essel would say that she'd give it to him. Her explanation of where it was validated why he wasn't able to find it, so believing what she was saying was easy. Whether he could trust her was a different story, but so long as she followed her end of the deal, Sung would proceed to keep his. It was a belief stemming from a pledge he made back when he first received the power of the system. Give and take.
Now you see me? Now you don't. Did you see me? Bro, let me go. I'm Chloe Kitts and this is my magic trick. Now you see me? Now you don't. Did you see me?
I wasn't always here, but thanks to Purdue Global, I got my literal dream job.
3 years ago, I didn't have a degree. I liked my job. I just hit a ceiling.
Even if Essel was a monster, Sung would abide by that pledge regardless. He did still consider it a waste to give up the XP of her and her clan, but the trade-off was the massive amount of time he'd save. He knew he'd spent way too much time on the 80th floor already. Plus, even if Essel did try to betray him, it's not like Sung would be upset about it. If anything, he'd probably be happy since he'd get both the XP and the permit. Now, Sung's first question was to compare the current situation with the monsters of regular dungeons, revealing the different nature between them. With magic beasts aiming to kill humans and these monsters wanting to protect the dungeon, that further reinforced the idea that he was the magic beast to them. It was a momentary thought of role reversal that Sung didn't really dwell on. Sung's next question would trigger the system's intervention, but the way it happened in the novel wasn't quite the same as how it happened here. I could just be looking into it too much, but I feel this difference is at least worth mentioning. So, where in the anime and manhwa the system directly blocks Essel from speaking, in the novel it's actually the opposite. Essel continues speaking like nothing is wrong, while all Sung can hear is the monotone voice telling him his conversation was being blocked. It was a message that would last until Essel's explanation was over. So, while the outcome was the same with regards to Sung not getting the information he wanted, the system's way of deafening him implies a level of control over him we may not have expected. Now, the system blocking Essel was actually a mistake on its part, because had it not interfered with Sung at all, then Sung felt he wouldn't have suspected anything. He would have assumed Essel's explanation to be nothing more than a system-made backstory, since with every aspect of these instance dungeons always being so game-like, it wasn't far-fetched to consider Essel's story another one of those elements. To him, it would have just been a simple bit of backstory for an NPC. It was the moment the system intervened, though, that's when Sung knew for certain she had answers. Whatever enemy she was referring to clearly held relation to whatever was going on with him. The system had acted way too sensitively for that not to be the case. Either way, with the system exhibiting influence over Earth, these monsters, and even him, it was clear it had some sort of transcendental powers. Something Sung knew he needed to be wary of. Essel passing out couldn't be fixed by any of Sung's potions, so the wait for her had actually led to numerous battles. As it turns out, demons without intelligence often considered demons with intelligence as enemies. So, with Essel out in the open as easy prey, many demons had tried to attack her. There was a whole pile of them right next to her when she woke up. Now, this next part is actually kind of a side thing, but it was common throughout all three mediums that Sung wouldn't know what personal space was. There would be times where he'd put his hands on her, and every time Sung would sense an increased heart rate. Because it was for nothing more than standing her up or guiding her forward, Sung would assume it was because she was scared. The manhwa and anime show it for what it really is. It's when we get to the Radaru Castle that Essel would have committed the equivalent of the Trojan horse for the demon realm. It was after her dad's justified reaction to it that he would quickly piece together this was the person who killed Vulcan and Metis. As trusted allies he was rather fond of, he was reminded of how sad he was when the news of their defeat first got to him. It's from this that Essel's dad knew he shouldn't fight, since to do so would require being ready to sacrifice everyone. Keep in mind, that wasn't due to the fact these demon nobles were weak. I mean, each was the equivalent of an S rank. It's just that Sung was way stronger now. Plus, with the Radaru clan being the weakest out of all of them, it was much easier to just believe Sung's words and avoid a fight altogether. That's when the dad would ask what else Sung wanted, fully expecting to hear something unreasonable. Reason being that after years of dealing with the demands of those who were stronger, not once were they ever fair. They were always made to insult both him and his people. So, to know this situation was likely the same, Essel's dad could only wait in frustration. It was when Sung asked for Essel herself that all the knights would gasp in astonishment. To see such peculiar reactions from those he considered monsters, well, that served to validate Essel's story from before. He started to think perhaps there was some truth to what she said after all. It was once the whole guide thing was cleared up that's when Essel's dad would contemplate what all this really meant. Like, to him Sung was essentially a calamity, and this calamity had just walked straight through their front door. He would think back to the day he first arrived here and remember how he knew the order they'd constantly been hearing was preparing them for something. They didn't know what it was, but just like how one would eat when they're hungry or sleep when they're tired, it was an impulse they felt the need to carry out instinctively. So when the news of an invasion reached him all the way up here, immediately he knew this was what they needed to protect their land from. A subjugation force would eventually be sent out to deal with it, only to reveal these invading soldiers weren't as powerful as he thought. There were groups of soldiers harder than the others, but those just required a bit of preparation. Sure, victory wasn't guaranteed against any of them, but none of them seemed outright impossible. That is, until they saw Sung. Still, negotiations with the human did hurt his pride, but that was far better than the alternative. And yes, the entry permit was something Essel's dad was supposed to protect, but the cost of doing so was just too high. He knew Sung was far too powerful to even consider fighting. It was even with all his shadows being clearly visible to him that Essel's dad could tell this wasn't even all Sung was capable of. Though he didn't know why, Sung was clearly hiding his true power. So, as unbelievable as it was for Sung to request only Essel and the permit, if it meant saving everyone, this really was no price at all. Plus, with this protecting the sanctity of the floor he was responsible for, technically he wasn't going against the order of the unknown voice either. The only risk he carried was with Essel. So, it was once Sung confirmed she'd be fine that the permit would be handed over and everyone happy. For Sung, this was a bit more of a surprise, since this would be the first time he'd acquired a key item through dialogue. The stamp at the bottom indicated it was the property of the Radaru clan, and that hinted the other permits were likely in possession of all the other clans. This made the climbing process a lot more streamlined, since rather than farm monsters aimlessly and endlessly, now Sung knew exactly where to go. It was much better than waiting forever for a loot item to drop randomly and without notice. It's then that Sung would want to leave immediately, but Essel's dad would insist he stay for a feast. Sung really wanted to keep going, but when he saw Essel's face and how it seemed like she wanted to stay, he decided to oblige since it was the courteous thing to do. he had also grown pretty sick of the stale bread and jerky the shop provided him. It was after all that Sung would make his way to the teleportation elevator, where Essel accompanying him would reveal the existence of a party system. Not only did this allow members to travel to the next floor with him, but it also shared his XP at a rate dependent on their level of contribution. Naturally, this made Sung more than a little bit worried, since to lose out on XP was quite literally the worst thing imaginable for him. That being the case, he made it crystal clear that under no circumstance should Essel ever intervene. Essel of course took this as Sung looking out for her, but really it was him ensuring all the XP was his. Now, we know Essel's bag was intended to be gifts for negotiation, but Sung felt one exception was enough. Even though the other clans were civilized like hers, Sung had no intention of sparing any of them. So there would be a fairly descriptive scene of Sung going on a massacre, and when you consider how these demons were only protecting the place they called home, it's kinda messed up that Sung wouldn't even give them a chance to give up. Like, before they had even known they were being attacked, Sung had already used Tusk to set their castle aflame. Their walls were literally melting, while any soldiers who ran outside were cut down instantly. So for Essel, this would be an absolute nightmare. She couldn't help but think now of how lucky she was. For Sung, this was simply the extent of the relation between humans and demons, because if the positions were flipped, they would do the same. It was the simple truth that the strong always devoured the weak. So, if Sung knew that they wouldn't spare him, then why was it that he should bother to do the same? This was the logic Sung decided to proceed with. This brings us now to a funny scene with Iron, since after clearing out another camp of demons, he had rushed over to Sung eagerly awaiting his praise. Sung would then ask if he was sure he was finished, to which Iron would nod confidently. The thing is, there was a demon right next to him stealthed with invisibility. Sung could tell it was waiting to mount a sneak attack, but decided not to do anything to see if Iron would notice. Since he didn't, Sung would take care of it himself, proceed to question Iron like a child, then Iron would lower his head out of embarrassment. Igris, on the other hand, would return looking a little different because his level was maxed, indicating he was ready for an advancement. He would then kneel in front of Sung, holding a sense of nervous determination, all while Sung would look at him proudly. As the first in his army to achieve such a feat, Sung believed it was well-deserved since Igris was always the one who fought the hardest. Sung would then establish the command enabling this advancement, speak the word triggering its commencement, then witness Igris evolve like he was a Pokemon. It was a moment that was a lot more epic in the manhwa, a scene visually similar to when Sung first became the Shadow Monarch. What emerged was a shadow with far more aura than ever before, so to see what it was his soldiers could become, Sung was now eager to do this with the rest of them. Tank would stroll in seeking his advancement next, revealing something rather peculiar about it. The levels required for it differed depending on the rank the shadow was. Since Tank has definitely killed less demons than Igris, for both to rank up together indicated Tank's level requirement was lower. It made sense considering that was just another standard video game element. Sung would then wonder if he could ascend himself, but that was an idea he knew was probably just wishful thinking. In any case, this evolution brought with it some pretty cool new designs for both Igris and Tank. For Iron, who had to watch all this go on, he was pretty sad since he was feeling left out. All he wanted was praise, but Igris and Tank stole all of it. Now, floor 90 and above was the level of Superior Nobles, so if Demon Nobles were at minimum the S rank, then Superior Nobles would be well above that. Essel was a bit worried Sung might fail, since if he did end up losing, the wrath of the upper clans would come barreling down on hers. It's for that reason she wanted to try negotiations first. She was trying to plan ahead just in case. The 90s did in fact prove to be a challenge, since where before his mana levels barely took a hit, now they fluctuated greatly. It meant his soldiers were getting destroyed and regenerated a lot now. Sung himself looked to be putting in work as well, since a hazy gas could be seen emitting from him. It was his sweat immediately evaporating from the heat, a telltale sign that each battle was life or death now. By the 97th floor, Essel didn't have energy to even be shocked anymore, so instead she would ask if every human was as strong as he was. It was a question to which Sung would answer only one or two, those being the chairman and Cha. The others didn't seem very strong at all anymore, especially Choi since Cha was quite a few tiers above him. So, if he was to judge based on their auras alone, there was a massive difference in strength amongst the S ranks. The reason I say massive is because, by Sung's observations, the difference between them was probably greater than the difference between the lower ranks. Like, say there did exist some form of double S rank, the difference between that and the regular S rank could be more than the gap between an A rank and the E rank. It was hard to say for sure since S rank mana levels couldn't be measured like that. When it came to his comparison with Chairman Go, they were on the same level the last time Sung saw him, but now that he was level 90, Sung was sure things were different. He was genuinely excited to go back home and compare, thrilled by the thought he might be able to consider them even weaker now. Now, the real reason Sung didn't need Essel anymore was because his perception stat had gotten to the level where he could find the permit without her. With the aura of the superior nobles being so strong, Sung could easily sense exactly where they were located. It made it so a guide was no longer necessary. Plus, he didn't really want to walk around with extra baggage. Essel would then question her own usefulness, leading Sung to walk up to her and tell her she worked hard. Her reaction was another emotion Sung never expected from a monster. But it was with each and every new one he got to see that it validated more and more the story she told before. He still wasn't sure whether this whole instance dungeon was a figment of the system's imagination, but for all the terror, anxiety, shock, and wistfulness Essel showed, it made it easier to believe she truly was a resident from another world. That being the case, Sung was starting to believe he was getting closer to the true identity of the system. It was once he would arrive at floor 100 that he would proceed to do a quick warm-up activating his muscles, then venture forward towards the boss. It was when he finally found him that it wasn't the boss that garnered his interest, but rather the wyvern he was flying. Since this wasn't a demon like all the others, it made Sung think he might be able to extract it. So now he was just as excited as he was back when he had the chance to extract Baraka. The fight then proceeded extremely faithful to the manhwa, minus a slight change where Tusk would be the one to bring the wyvern down. Baran's army would be estimated in the thousands, so Sung was essentially up against the equivalent of 1,000 A ranks. Then the opening skewering was a move Sung had intentionally waited for, creating a scene straight out of Vlad's playbook. The novel presents the fight as something significantly easier for Sung since there wasn't much of the struggle we saw in the anime. His immunity to lightning meant he could run around without issues, then their initial clash here had actually been what knocked Baran out of the sky. The two would then immediately engage. Sung would have to abandon his robe because it caught on fire, then after that he would proceed with a Sid-like battle, dodging everything perfectly. It was necessary to do so considering any attack could prove to be fatal now. So, Sung would dodge with the smallest of margins, all while gaining ground in the process. It was once he was right in front of Baran that he would reminisce of the battles he had before, thanking them for providing the power to fight evenly against such an absurdly strong monster. It was no exaggeration to say each floor molded and refined him for this exact moment. Sung would then land a critical hit on Baran's shoulder, leading to a fair spout of blade-to-blade combat. At first it seemed relatively even, up until Sung would use Ruler's Touch to stagger Baran. This would bring him to his knees, then create an opening allowing Sung to land the decisive punch. Sung would then follow it up with a weirdly placed punch straight into Baran's mouth, effectively preventing him from attacking with his magic. He would then treat his head like a glove, batter it around until it was gone, then thank Baran too for everything he was about to provide for him. So, while the fight was still fairly intense, in the novel it didn't seem like Sung ever had a chance of losing. It was nowhere near as close as the manhwa or anime. Now, if you're wondering how Ruler's Touch could even be used here, it's because that's one of Sung's skills that don't use mana. Just like how Shadow Preservation allows him to summon shadows without mana as well, Ruler's Touch can be used with zero cost whatsoever. But yeah, that was the Tower Dungeon and Sung's fight against the Demon King. This was, however, only half the cut content, so if you want to see the crazy stuff regarding Jeju next, then be sure to subscribe since that video will be out soon. But anyway, thanks again so much for watching, and if you want to support the channel then consider checking out the merch. Until next time though, ciao! Okay, this was pretty cool. Scenes like this are actually anime original, and I'm 100% here for all of it. Just like how it was with episode 1 though, a lot of the finer details focusing on the people around Sung couldn't make it due to how much they need to cover this season. There was also a bit more to Sung's grind in the Red Gate, so if you want to see just how much he leveled up, along with what you may have missed from his boss fight against Baraka, that's exactly what we're gonna talk about this video. It's all the differences between the anime, the manhwa, and the novel. Let's get started. Episode 14, I Suppose You Aren't Aware, covering chapters 53 to 55 from the manhwa and chapters 63 to 66 from the web novel. To start things from the very beginning of the Red Gate incident, I want to focus on who Sung was with first. Reason being that, as new recruits from the White Tiger Guild, this was actually their very first time doing a dungeon raid. How then were they so composed when plunged into the Red Gate? Well, that's because they were taught that anything could happen. Each and every one of them had already gone through extensive training outside the gates. That being the case, the fact this was their first raid didn't mean that they were ill-prepared, it just meant they were inexperienced. As soon as this gate was completed, all of them were set to start doing high-rank dungeons. It essentially made this nothing more than a practice run for the 12 of them. There being 12 was actually one of the differences the anime didn't show us, since here we saw that they only had 8 hunters. The full strike squad consisted of 1 A rank, 7 B ranks, and 4 C ranks. Completely overkill for what a C rank gate normally required, but made sense since this was, after all, practice. Now, an interesting property which made this gate visibly different from the outside was the strange viscous nature with which it absorbed people. Normally the surface was supposed to return to being solid as soon as someone entered, but for some reason this one kept rippling like a liquid. It even clung to Sung's hand like glue the moment he touched it, resulting in its ability to swallow him whole. So, the gate would turn red and the White Tiger Guild would call Beck, leading to that whole outburst where he would express his anger towards the association. It didn't really matter that they got the reading wrong now though, since whether it was initially C, B, or A ranked, the fact the gate was red now trumped all of that. Besides, they couldn't even remeasure the gate if they wanted to, since red gates had the distinct property of leaking 0 magical energy. It's just that Beck knew from personal experience red gates were incredibly dangerous, so much so that he was ready to count all those who were trapped as KIA. A new character had actually arrived right after Beck to dissuade that notion, basically saying how Kim Chul would be able to pull through for them. The reason this man was so invested in Kim was because he was the chief of the White Tiger Guild's 1st Division, the team responsible for prepping those who would be on the main strike force. Training was usually handled by